Hi, my name is Dr. Scott Young, and today we're going to talk about a little post-NESARA kind of thing and 2 Chronicles 7:14. Coming right up. Okay, you might notice in the last 6 months, I'm down from 233 to 201 today, so I'm working real hard at it. I just don't go out to eat anywhere because I really want to keep it down and kind of get better shape with that too. So it's a lot of fun. Okay, we're going to talk about a verse that I actually did a video on a long while ago. And I want to, walk you through this verse. And I'm going to have my people put this on the bottom of the screen for you. It's 2 Chronicles 7:14. And it says, "And my people who are called by my name humble themselves, pray, and seek my face. They turn from their turn from their evil ways. Then I will hear them from heaven, forgive their sin, and heal their land." Okay. Context is always incredibly important when you look at these kinds of verses, okay? Most people in the truther community and others have utilized this verse as an American verse. Now, we have to ask ourselves the question, if it's an American verse, it only is for America. I mean, does that kind of make sense? I mean, if we're talking about, and let's give you an example. If we're talking about a verse that's going to a group of people, or whatever that might be. For instance, how do we say this? The disciples had conversations, or Jesus would have conversations, and he would have it with a general crowd, right? And then he would bring them aside and say, "I'm just telling you about this," okay? And if you notice, he did that many times. Sometimes he was talking to the Pharisees, and then the disciples would go, "Wait, what was that about?" And so then he would explain it a little further with that. So that's really a speaker talking to a group or a smaller group kind of thing. When Jesus actually asked the 3 disciples to come over with him, James, John, and Peter, he's really going, I want to have a very small cadre when he walks into the Garden of Gethsemane. Okay, and when you look at writings, you have to understand what the audience is, okay, and the perspective of that particular verse. And most people don't do that. They just pull this verse out and apply it, throw it up on the wall as if it actually fits everywhere. So we have to first start with the one point of "and my people." And you go, okay, so is this, when we say "my people," okay, we want to look at that verse and we say, who is it? So we ask the big who questions. If you're around me enough, you'll see me asking that question and posting that question to you. And when you say who, well, how do you know who it is? And you have to go backward several verses. Bob Yandian was a pastor of the Tulsa church here, and some of you guys know who he is. He's called Grace, and his son took it over. So, always things change over the years. And Bob Yandian would talk about this. You always want to go 10 verses before and 10 verses after to kind of figure out a context. By the way, that's an English terminology. I have my degree in English, and I would do that when I'm writing about something. If you're reading through a book and you kind of lose track of it, you might back up a few pages going, what was he talking about? Oh, he was talking to the French, whatever that might be, okay? Because you're always asking the who question. And it's really important here because the temple, that big first temple is just been finished. I mean, this is years in the making. Solomon's talking this particular set of verses. The temple's finished. He's thinking, man, we should celebrate, but he's very frustrated with the people, and he's complaining to God. Now, God actually comes back to him with this strange set of verses. I mean, think about this for a second. The verses don't fully make sense to you because you go, why would he say what he's saying here? Now, first off, you have to know what the referent might be. Now, some people would say, my people, that means everyone in the history of the world. That's the Jews and whoever believe in the New Testament, and that's partly right. But it's not fully right, okay? So let's go through a couple different ways of looking at this. So some people say, well, my people will basically humble themselves and they'll get on their face and confess Jesus, basically, in that way. And they turn from their evil ways. Well, I'm going to hear from heaven, forgive them their sin, and heal their land. And when they say their land, they think, well, that's an American verse. But here's what I would also say. What if Afghanistan actually utilized this verse? Oh. And what if all of Afghanistan did this? What if all of Egypt decided to do this? What if Germany decided to utilize this verse as a running point? And they said, this is what we're gonna stand on. And I'm not talking about governments, I'm not really dealing with that. But what if the whole nation was just walking through the streets? And you've seen some of these people walking through the streets, hundreds of thousands, and not one idiot newscaster will ever go and talk about that. That's why mainstream media is a bunch of idiots. Never listen to anything they say. They're always lying to you, always, shape, and form, because they never tell you about really major issues that are going on. Okay, that's my little, get off and get all pissed off with that stuff too. But if Germany picked on this verse and the pastors, the people that, the leaders, the church people and other people would start coming into alignment, would this verse be applicable to them? Yeah. What if America started to do it? Would it be applicable to them? Yes, because when you utilize the biblical principles of this, of course it's applicable to them. So how is it only an American verse? The answer is not. Okay, that's a little logic. Okay? But I want to share with you how this verse actually, there are levels of the verse. The who can be anyone. Okay? And so we can't just go over there and say this is only an American verse. So pastors who make this incorrect claim, they make a lot of problems when they say it to people. And I have people claim it to me, and they get all pissed off when I say this kind of stuff. Well, my pastor Billy Joe. And I'm like, I don't care if every pastor in America said this verse and it only was delivered just to the American people. That doesn't mean the Bible says it that way. We have to go with the theology over my Scott doctrine. It's not my situation. It's not the doctrines of Scott that will get you into heaven. It's not the doctrines of Billy Joe that will get you into heaven. It's your belief in the Word of God, which is the writing from the Holy Spirit through men to you. That's the communication pattern, okay? We have to know what he's trying to say. And sometimes we look at this and we think we have the clue, but this is an onion. This is a layer. So the first level that you might say is this could be to anyone. Of course it can be, okay? So people can personally claim this kind of thing, and they can watch the healing of their land. We could have a farmer and his family, and they're like on their land, and they do this together, and they can watch the healing of their land. Totally cool with that. We can go up a level, and we can say a nation could do this. Yeah. A nation can do this, but any nation can do this. There's not just one nation that can do this. But there always is a final fulfillment. So there has to be, and I'm going to tell you about two of them in here. There is a final fulfillment of this kind of verse, but there's also a real secondary kind of point. a secondary type, you know, and we might call it a type or model of this. Now, you might utilize this and say it's a type and shadow, okay, but I'll talk about it as a type and model. Let me give you an example of that. The rapture of the church. Long, complicated story. Revelation 14:14, Revelation 7:9. We've got 1 Thessalonians 4:16. We have 2 Corinthians 5:52 or 15:52, 15:56. I mean, there's all these verses, and there's a ton more. I mean, I haven't even gotten into several verses in Luke that will give you some of those ideas too. They're all over the place. And that is talking about events down the road, okay? Now, we're talking about a rapture, which is in Latin, okay? And in the Greek, it's harpazo. It is a physical, it's a process of like taking something out of the situation and repurposing it to another idea, okay? That's the point of the rapture. You can, if you want to watch this, I have a book called Rapture, Could There Be More Than One? So you can kind of look at that if you're interested in looking at that more. But there's a type and shadow of this exact event, and one of them that we'll just bring up, and there's several of others, okay? One type is Enoch. In Genesis, it says that Enoch lived for, I want to say 365 years, but I could be wrong on that exact number. I don't have it off the top of my head. But basically, long enough time frame, but nowhere near like like the ancestors that would come around him. And he always walked with God and walked uprightly. And then suddenly he was no more. And you're like, what? You know, I mean, he's gone. And that's a type of a rapture event. And there's several others, but that's just an example. What God likes to do is try to show you how cool, how amazing this situation is, right? And he's going to show you over and over again. Well, we can apply that in these kinds of ways too. So there are types and models of this. So if a nation wants to apply it, that's cool. If any one or small group of people want to take this verse and apply it, that's cool too, okay? Now, we'll go backward on this one here, but I want to jump forward to the final fulfillment, because there's always a wrapping up of, okay? Well, there's always types and shadows. The Old Testament is a type and shadow of the New Testament, okay? And a fulfillment of the New Testament with that too. There is a time where this actually will be fulfilled. And let me give you how this actually works. It's actually an interesting date. We just went past this date, and it's called Rosh Hashanah. Now, Rosh Hashanah is really known as the Feast of Trumpets, so it has a trumpet response, okay? But it's more appropriately looked at as the crowning of the king. Now, kings are always kind of introduced by trumpet blasts. And some people will feel like Rosh Hashanah has to be the fulfillment of the rapture of the church, or a pre-tribulation rapture of the church. There's a long story that we would go through. It cannot be. But it is a type of rapture point of event. It is what I would call a post-tribulation rapture, or a pre-wrath positional rapture. Now, why can't it be? Because it's a 10-day period of time. Someone's buzzing me here again. It's a 10-day period of time that you have to get right with the people around you, because this is the more important part. So when we have to get right with other people, we believe that we're in trouble right now. And we have sin against the other people. So I go, hey man, I kicked your goat. And you know, I kissed your daughter, didn't tell you about it, kind of thing. Whatever the bad things that you did. And you went to your community and did the things that you need to do to ask for forgiveness, okay? By the way, this verse has a little bit to do that, right? It says, when my people humble themselves, pray, seek my face, turn from their evil ways. I will hear from heaven, forgive their sin, and heal their land. Now, the coronation of the king, actually the perfect final fulfillment, I do believe, is when Jesus is in the clouds. Now, you can actually listen to the same thing in my Hope in the Last Day series and go farther into this conversation. We talk about this in the Rapture. Rapture, could they be more than one? But what happens when we see Jesus in the clouds, Revelation 14:14, Jesus is in the clouds. He's got a crown on his head. Oh my gosh, that's a different thing than any other time frame. You know, he is the Prince of Peace, but he's also the King of Kings. And how does a king go into his new situation as the ruler? Like he's ruling and reigning with Christ, that you're ruling and reigning with Christ, which happens in the millennial reign. How does that happen? Let me explain. You get married so that your progeny is good. So you have kids, right? But you go in that with your wife, the bride of Christ. Why does God use all these beautiful pictures? Because he's trying to explain it, okay? Types and shadows. So this is an event that I believe that will be in the clouds. That's why we are the fulfillment of that. We're the bride of Christ, and we come behind him. That's Revelation 17:14. That he's come on the white horse, and he comes with him, the called, chosen, and faithful. 3 separate groups, longer conversation. But again, this is the final fulfillment. Now, think about this. So when my people humble themselves, pray, seek my face, turn from their evil ways. Now, again, is this talking about the bride of Christ? No, it has nothing to do with it. Who are the my people when we traditionally look at this? Because this is an Old Testament verse. 2 Chronicles, right? Who's that? Go back to the original verse, and you go back, look at that a little closer, and you go, oh, wait a second. That is the Jews. When the original verse, when this thing will come to pass, which I think is in Revelation 14:14, what that's talking about is that Jesus is in the clouds. When they see him in the clouds, every tongue will confess that Jesus is Lord. It doesn't say that every tongue will confess that he's a Savior. They will look up and the whole world will go, you know what? I'm wrong, there really is a God, and you are it. But some of them won't accept it. Because to be the Savior, you have to ask for forgiveness. That's exactly what Rosh Hashanah is about, is asking for forgiveness. Do you see the fulfillment? It's so amazing. Because what he's saying is, my people who are called by my name, humble themselves, pray and seek my face. Wait, seek my face. They're looking up. I will hear from heaven. What is Revelation 14:14 saying? Jesus is in the heavens, in the clouds. Oh man, that's such a cool set of verses. He's got a sickle in his hand, ready to take the grapes, not the winepress of the wrath of the Lamb. Oh my gosh, it's such a cool set of verses there. Now, when the Jews ask for forgiveness, they're not going through a rapture event, because some of the people, there's another group of people as well, called the sheep, they will go through the tribulation, the end of the tribulation into the millennial reign. So, because we have to have believers in the millennial reign. Now, I mean, you can go back through this teaching. I'm doing it really fast. You're going, how about you? Okay, you go through other teachings. I have it all there, okay? So I'm telling you, that is a first level, or that's the final level fulfillment of that particular verse. But God's been bugging me in the last little bit. And he always comes and tells me, hey, Scott, now it's time to reveal a new thing. There are lots of people in the Great Awakening who are talking about this type of verse. And I will tell you that I think what's going to happen is in a new level with my people. So let me kind of erase this. And I think there's a type and shadow event that is going to occur. And it happens with something really interesting. So when we talk about my people, well, you can be my people as well. His people, okay? So you can also be a part of this. This is the type and shadow event, okay? But I want to show you how this may work. So now we're going to talk about, we're in the post-NESARA era. What in the world am I talking? Oops. NESARA era. That means after the EBS, Trump's in office, blah, 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 you know, elections are done, right? And we also then have, you know, all this real interesting thing. We're going to focus in on one tiny element, is the debt forgiveness. That's why when people don't understand, Great Reset only talks about a little bit of student loan forgiveness. That's all they want to do. And that isn't, and then they tell you, well, guess what? The other people will pay for that student loan forgiveness. Bah humbug, okay? That's just sickness, okay? When the debt forgiveness occurs, okay, because we're killing off the Fed and the banking systems through the 14th Amendment under the 4th section, okay? When we do this kind of thing and we kill this stuff off, we take away the cabal's ability to have the money, okay? So then what happens here is this issue. I guarantee you there's going to be something crazy that goes along with this, because when people feel the weight off of them, they're going to have a very unique experience. There are going to be issues of celebration. Now, some people only want to talk about the debt forgiveness in here because they go, well, I don't have any debt. But there also is going to be, you know, the IRS death, and we're also going to see the gold-backed currency. And all of these are types of mercy events. Okay? We didn't like, you know, mercy and grace events. Okay? So there's these mercy and grace events that are occurring, because what this is dealing with is that it's moving you out of the slavery. Now, a lot of people talk about this, and they do some good jobs at explaining this with people. But that debt slavery, you're going to feel it come off of your chest. Now, God asked me, this makes no sense to most people. In July of 2021, we're at the 29th of September in 2022. But in July of 2021, God told me to pay off a loan. And it was the last $21,000 of it. It really hurt because I'm paying off this loan. And I'm like, wait, but NESARA's going to pay this off. And God said, I know, but I want to teach you something. It took me a while to figure it out. And there was a lot of cool things that we're figuring out. And this is part of that kind of thing that has been unfolding for more than a year in me. So what happens when you see this kind of stuff, whether you have debts or whether you don't, you're going to feel this slavery kind of come off of you. And when you understand the word of debt has so much to do with the word of sin. Do you know that the word for sin also talks about you getting into a negative relationship with God, right? Because you did something bad. Because he's looking for perfection. All sin and fallen short of the glory of God. The perfection is the only thing that will get you to heaven. That's what Romans talks on and on and on and on and on about. But what happens in here is that the direct correlate is debt. So one of the things that's going to happen to people, and when they experience this thing going away, or that thing going away, or this thing going away, changing over from the fiat currency to this, they're going to feel the slavery come off of them. And I predict we are going to have another type of event that's very similar to what will happen in the future, because God is always about types and shadows. My people who are called by my name humble themselves. They pray, seek my face. They're going to go, is this all that is? Is this the only things that are out there that God has? Because something happened to me. I need to really search it out. The churches are not equipped for this. I mean, Julie Green Ministries talks a lot about this, gorgeously talks about this. They're not equipped for it because they're not awakened. And if they're not awakened, they're not very useful to God right now. I mean, if you're not awakened to the stuff that's going on in the world, you're not very useful. It's like, it actually says this in Matthew, that if the salt goes bad, we just chuck it out on the streets because we're not going to utilize it anymore. It won't have any taste ability. That's where the churches are sitting right now. There's, preaching, bringing in the sheep and all this other stupid messages, and they haven't been spending the time on the awakened messages that are happening in the world around us. The movements of millions and millions of people. And that's why the cabal is losing so badly, because they couldn't imagine that the 99% are awakened to the idiot 1% who are now going to jail when that thing happens in that EBS event. And we pick in new people that are from among us to go into office and do the right things with that. And when we have this debt forgiveness and IRS and gold-backed currency kind of thing, the slavery comes off. And what we start equating this debt issue, we will start equating it with sin and going, wait, I don't need to have sin anymore in our lives. So let's go backward and we'll kind of end it with this. When we look at this thing, we see my people, that's also you. I believe when we have a post-NESARA thing, we are going to have a massive wave of God, because people will have experienced the debt forgiveness, the IRS, the gold-backed currency. They will see, the court systems changing, a little bit more and more every day. And they're going to have a direct role in helping to change and kill some of that stuff. They will see the EBS and they'll see the justice of God happening for these complete idiot Kabbalists who have been killing and raping all kinds of ways, okay? I don't want to get into that too much, but you can go really gross on that. And that, I believe, is going to have a biblical effect of debt coming off of your shoulders, that slavery point. And it's going to say, wait a second, is that all? And you, the bride of Christ, need to be there, need to be grown up in the Word. And know that, no, that's not all that you have of that stuff. The next step is for you to humble yourself, pray and seek my face, turn from your evil ways, and I'll hear you from heaven and forgive your sin and heal your land. It's not a final fulfillment of that verse, but it is a beginning fulfillment. It's a type and shadow fulfillment. Okay, all through the Old Testament, there's types and shadows. Melchizedek is a type of high priest that Jesus is the fulfillment of. This is the same kind of thing that I've been starting to kind of see in here, that I believe this is a post-NESARA verse. Now again, years down the road, when the tribulation starts occurring, we will, we'll see this event happen in finality in the end of the tribulation, the last Rosh Hashanah that will occur. But we're going to see this verse happen. So I hope that helps you kind of see it. Again, we talk a lot about some of the EBS issues and revelations of the red pill that you can go to drscottyoung.com. Again, we've talked about this one before. This is the other book, Rapture, Could There Be More Than One? If you want to go into the end time issues and understand the nature of this, but I didn't even perceive it necessarily in here. I'm telling you, God is moving in some unique ways that I couldn't have imagined. And I'm walking through this process every day to find new layers that God is going to be revealing. One of my next major studies is, what does the post-NESARA era up to the tribulation actually mean? Now, we postulated that, and I've more postulated that in Revelations of the Red Pill, but I haven't really explored it yet because I need to see what the predictions actually are. So hope that helps you out. I hope it gives you some good understanding. We're going to get back onto, we talked about the sheep, we're going to talk about the children of God, and then we're going to talk into the bride of Christ, which is sort of related here. We'll start talking about those in a little while. So thanks so much. I appreciate you listening.